Hi, Tammy. Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
I can't hear you yet. Hold on.
Okay. Can you hear me now? All right, guys, so we have TammyMartin from USD 259, and she has an array of knowledge that she is going to share with us today about MTSS and her role in peer consulting and new teacher induction. We're just so thankful that you took some time. I know your schedule is super busy, so thank you so much for taking some time to chat with us. These students are getting ready to graduate, so in May, they will be done, and they've worked really, really hard. But we want to try to bring in some guest speakers, and since it's a completely online program, this is the best way to bring in some outside expertise. So whatever you would like to share with us as far as the roles that you've had at 259.
So I started my career as a fourth grade teacher at Cessna Elementary. So I have an elementary background. I actually taught preschool for years before I became a public educator. Taught fourth grade and fifth grade. And then took a year off to stay at home with my babies and couldn't stand it. I had to be back in the education field. I became a reading intervention teacher when I was at Cloud Elementary. Then after that, so worked a few years being reading intervention. I got my admin degree during that time. I haven't been a building-based instructional coach or an MTSS facilitator. It's kind of a mouthful, but that's what we call them. I was at that for Harry Street Elementary. Last year, I spent the year being the K-5 ELA curriculum specialist. And now this year, I'm the executive coordinator of curriculum and instruction. Wow. And I coordinate the mentoring and the peer consultant. So I have a wide span of knowledge or roles that I've had. And Wichita is just really great because there's so much opportunity to get your feet wet in so many different roles.
Awesome. So a couple of clarifying questions. So you said you were a reading intervention teachers. So if our students, some of them are really excited about that trajectory. A lot of them are special education paras that work in reading or math specifically. So what advice would you give them if they wanted to do and become a reading intervention teacher? What all do you get to do or have to do?
Well, I know that TAP students are working as paras as well as going through the program if they're not already employed. So I would advise to experiment and get to know any of the reading intervention programs that you can get your hands on. So if you have the opportunity to teach something, jump in and learn it and teach it. Because when you interview for those reading intervention jobs, if you have a background in teaching phonics lessons library or SIPs or any of those programs that we have as a district, that really is something principals are looking for. They really want to have someone that has some background. Not that that would limit you if you don't have that background, but if you have the opportunity, I would encourage you to try those out and also to help sell that when you're interviewing for those jobs. Now, if you don't have that kind of opportunity, you might want to share your willingness to learn about these programs and to use them with fidelity, but still employ all the best practices you guys are learning in your program as well.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you. As far as you said, you get to coordinate all the new teacher induction. That's something that districts across Kansas provide for new teachers, right? So no matter where they go, even if they're not in 259, they get a building mentor. But what do you do to make it more than just, hey, Liz, you're with Tammy, go? You know, what do you do to really create that I feel supported feeling?
Yeah. So we have two paths that our first year teachers can take. They either have a building mentor, like you said, Liz, and as part of your licensure, you'll have 2 years of mentoring. So once you get that initial license, you'll be required in any district to have 2 years of mentoring. What makes 259 unique is the amount of supports we put in place for those programs. So our building-based mentors, receive a training. We actually this year had their mentees come with them. And so the mentees kind of got a background of what it's like to be mentored as well, which sounds bizarre, but it's a skill set to have somebody who can work with you. And we provide every month we provide email support to our mentors or ideas or things that they might think about. October is traditionally a pretty tough month for teachers. The weather's starting to turn. You're starting to have more indoor recess. The kids are all on sugar high. And so we remind our mentors what it felt like that first year when this is happening. And you're like, oh my gosh, it's October. My kids lost my mind. So we try to provide a ton of support with them in that manner. Our peer consultants are highly trained in the field of mentoring and also highly trained in knowing the needs that our first year teachers have. So they each have 15 new teachers that they work with, and that's totally unique to any district around us. So they are full release mentors, but they came directly from the classroom into this role. And it's not a role that they can be in forever. So we want people that have been fresh from the classroom. And they're working with those teachers. They're meeting with the teachers. They're coming and visiting their classroom. And they are just like the biggest cheerleader for these first year teachers. So those peer consultants, not only do they have those teachers, but they're also the ones that plan that mentoring training. So they help our mentors for our teachers that don't get a peer consultant. And we also have new teacher induction trainings. So we do that twice a year. It's a day out of your classroom, away from your kids, and it's truly designed for our beginning teachers. All the information that first year teachers tell us over and over again, I need more support with behavior, I need more support with this. We design those trainings and have them very tailored to our first year teacher needs.
I love that. And one of the things, because our students too, whether it was the on-ground classes at Wichita State or in this unique program that we have for the TAP program, they all want classroom management. They're worried that they won't be able to handle X, Y, and Z. What's unique about the paras is they've been in this for a couple of years, so they know that. What do you see as first year teachers? Because there's only so much we can teach out of a textbook or in lectures. A lot of it is just you kind of have to trial by fire. So what are some things that you do at the beginning of the year to really help calm their nerves with what you're seeing as kind of the big, huge obstacles in regards to classroom management or behavior management?
So at the beginning of the year, we have a huge new staff orientation training, and we work with our new teachers. We go over our positive behavior classroom management systems and talk about some really great ways that we can be positive in our approach to classroom management. Because as we all know, the kids respond better when you're being positive and you're building a relationship with those kids. So we spend a lot of time working on that and how we structure our class, how we interact with our students, how we can correct the students fluently and positively. We also provide time with our curriculum specialists where you can learn about the curriculum so you know kind of what you're going to be teaching. So if you have been working in 259, you might have an idea of what Engage New York looks like or what the middle school ELA curriculum looks like. But until you're the classroom teacher, you get a whole new lens on those curriculums. And so you get time to be immersed in the curriculum. You get to see that as well. And we also have half a day where you're in the building with either a building buddy or a mentor, so somebody within the building that you can have kind of that safe, confidential relationship with, and also your administrator. And they're going to go over like your teacher evaluation system and what that looks like for you, and just get more details about the unique needs of each one of our buildings. The principals share that with you. If they're a magnet building or if they have any special focus, you get time to work with them as well during that induction time.
Awesome. We talk a little bit with our students about finding your marigolds. So sometimes when you are connected with a mentor or you're connected with a building buddy, sometimes that's not a perfect match, although we try really hard when we're matching people up to match personalities. So
sure.
What is your advice as far as if the person that the building or the district has connected you with is great for some things, but you really find that maybe there's a different person in the building that could be kind of your go-to person? how do you recommend they go about asking people or several people for advice? Because teachers like to share. We like to give up our ideas.
Yeah, teachers do like to share.
Right.
And the mentor is only going to be able to fulfill so many needs. You're going to have needs outside of what the mentor really can provide. And that is even with the perfect match. Even if you got matched with your marigold, they're still going to have deficits or things that they're not as strong with, or they don't feel as confident sharing with you. And I always advise, like, find your people, like find your tribe once you get into the building. So sometimes as a beginning teacher, it's going to be your other first year teachers. So you can go to them and be like, oh my gosh, what were we thinking? Like, this seemed like a really good idea at the time, because that first year is so hard. But you get through it together and you become so much stronger through that. And if you see somebody that's really good at doing something and you go to them and you're like, oh my gosh, you're so good with classroom management. Like, can I come watch you? Can I come learn from you? There's not a lot of teachers that are going to say, no, you can't. Especially when you come with that warm compliment and you're sincere, like, I want some help. Can I come watch you? Teachers do love to share, and they do. They remember what it's like. And so I really advise you, sometimes that's hard and we have to be brave, but sometimes just making that step helps start building that community for you, because it really, you don't want to feel like it's just you and your students and you're alone. You really need to build that community yourself and build friendships and professional relationships with your colleagues.
I love that. I love that you encourage them to go and seek that out and say, hey, can I just sit in your classroom for a while? Because I think that is, you learn so much from your colleagues and sitting in on that. And it is a pretty cool compliment for somebody to say, hey, can I watch how you do what you do? Because you're great. That would be wonderful. So good. What other pieces of advice from your roles with MTSS and peer consulting do you want to tell our students?
I think what we're finding, the teachers are most successful in their first year have that I'm not going to quit attitude. Like, even when it gets really tough, even when they're really struggling, that grit and that perseverance, we talk about that with our students all the time, but it is so essential for our teachers to just really to know you're going to have hard days, and you're going to have days that it doesn't go the way you think it's going to go. And then you're going to have days where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm doing it. I'm totally changing the world for these students. And sometimes we have to remember all those great things, because we all have days that are really hard, or that you have an observation that didn't go the way you wanted it to, or something happened and you're disappointed, your favorite kid is moving to another district. But you have to keep those positives at the forefront of your mind. And if you are a writer, start journaling some of those things just to keep them at the forefront of your mind. I have a folder in my email where I keep any nice emails I get. So that way, when I get like a nice warm fuzzy, I can put it in there. And when I'm having a hard day, I open up those emails. I'm like, okay, this is why I do what I do. Because of these people that I work with, and because of the students that I'm building this trust and relationship with. So those things are so critically important. So that grit and that perseverance, but also that willingness and the sense of wanting to continue to learn and seeing it as an opportunity. And so if there's something that you don't know, chances are most people don't know it when they come in. And the TAP students really they have an advantage in that they've been working in the building, so they're seeing the function of a building. And that we know that the practical application of teaching really is when you learn the most. So you maybe don't have some of the background with some of the classes, but that practical application, you're coming in with so many skill sets. Don't be afraid to ask about the things you don't know yet. That willingness to learn and to be vulnerable sometimes and to overcome it, that's very endearing. People like to see that. So don't be afraid to ask, and don't be afraid to want to learn. So that's my two big pieces of advice.
Those are great. I love the grits. I love that, because we try to instill that within our students, but we have to be able to own that, because it is hard. And I think October, you know, when our students watch this, it'll be spring semester, but they'll remember back to October and how lots of them sent their emails like, oh my gosh, this is not what I was thinking, because it is October and February. Don't you think it's February-ish in the spring semester, the shortest month?
October, sometimes November too, but February. Yeah, those kind of transitional months can be kind of tough. You get going in January, you reset because you've had a couple of weeks away from each other. February feels tough, and then in March, I mean, you're really getting in the home stretch. And April and May tend to fly by really fast. So,
okay, my final question for you. Professionalism is something that we kind of touch on each semester in the different courses. Just the importance of being professional in conversations with your peers, in email, in any kind of communication. So, overseeing all the first year teachers, what are some tips and tricks to ensuring that we are maintaining professionalism all the time? What would you say to that, I guess, that growth?
well, I will say it's amazing how you might say something you don't think somebody's watching or you don't think somebody's listening, and then it comes back around. And so I actually am dealing with some of this. When you go to an in-service training, being willing to learn and positive, even if the environment's not what you want it to be or the topic's not really what you need in the moment, because those, it has a funny way of getting around to you. And I'm not saying that you don't need to find somebody that you might need to vent to, because you're going to need to find that too. But you have to know the time and the place in an appropriate manner to do that in. Because some days you're frustrated and you might have your marigold and you might close the door and you're safe to share. But make sure what you're sharing is not something that if it got out, you're going to be humiliated or you're going to lose your job or something like that. Like, you really do, even when you're venting, you want to have it be solutions oriented. And sometimes when we're venting, it's just problem. But we want to find solutions. So when you're venting, make sure you're in a safe environment. Don't do that in the teacher's lounge, because somebody always hears it in the teacher's lounge. Even if you think nobody's there, somebody will hear it. And make sure just at all times you're representing the kind of teacher you would want your own child to have. And so if you're saying something about a kid or about a parent, that's not something you would want your child's teacher to say about you or your child. Rethink how you might want to phrase that, because that student's just one of your students, but that's somebody's whole world that's sitting in your class. So when you're thinking about the way you talk about a student, even if they're really challenging, because we all have those stinkers sometimes, really think about being solutions oriented and trying to find a solution to that, and less about how frustrated you feel.
Oh, that is so good. It's somebody's whole world. Sometimes we forget about that when we're just like, man, this one kid changes the dynamic. But you're right. Parents send us their best. They don't leave the good ones at home. You know, they send all the things.
Yeah, they don't.
Thank you, Tammy, so much for your insight and for your wisdom and your advice for our students. I really appreciate the support that you're showing them. So thank you very much.
Oh, well, congratulations to all you guys. And if you're not already, come work in Wichita. We'd love to have you.
Good. Awesome. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
All right. Thank you.